Hey everybody, Manny here once again. Welcome to DFS Zone, your source for daily fantasy sport lineup advice for the NBA and the NFL. Got a brand new video for you, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I got a stud 5 and a value 5. But before I get started with today's video, like always, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, never been here before, never seen any of my NBA or NFL lineup advice videos, the only thing you have to do to be a part of the DFS Zone community, like always, is subscribe down below. Make sure you turn on that bell icon so this way you'll be notified when I post a new NFL or NBA lineup advice video. All right, with that being said, today is Saturday, November the 24th, 2018. We have a 7-game slate in the association today, and we're going to dive right to it, man. At point guard today, I definitely love a whole lot of Russell Westbrook. I think he's going to definitely have a massive game here today. Denver has been doing very well defensively this year, man, but they have not faced somebody like Russell Westbrook as of yet. And Russell Westbrook has pretty much owned these guys in 6 out of his last 7 games. He has just literally destroyed them for over 60 fantasy points. But 24 points pretty much 9 rebounds, 10 rebounds a game, 9 assists. He's definitely a double-double, triple-double. Almost any given day, any given night, he can definitely put that up for you. 52 pretty much, we round this off, 52 fantasy points per game at 11,003. You need pretty much 56, 57, very much attainable for him. On DK, it's only 10,700. You only need 52, 53 over there to meet value. Definitely think he can do that here tonight. 48 or better over the last 3 games. He had a 58 spot last night, put up 30 points from the floor last night, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, had a double-double, nearly a triple-double. He did have a triple-double in the game prior to that. We go over to the cruncher, and we go to Mr. Westbrook, and the numbers are just all there. Usage rate over 30-somewhat percent, 32, 33% usage rate. The minutes are there, 33 or better, pretty much on a regular basis. And you know he's going to get tons of shots. He is the most important player on this team other than Paul George. 18, 15, 25. He takes about, I would say, 20 shots pretty much on average per game. He'll throw up a few threes. Sometimes he gets a little crazy with those, but he is not a big three-point shooter, but he'll take 2 or 3 threes on a regular basis. You can see last 3 games he's taken up 10, 5, and 4, but he's going to get on the foul line because he is very aggressive to the basket, and he's going to get his opportunities to rebound because he loves rebounding. On top of that, he's willing to also make sure he gets his other teammates involved, so he gets the assist going, the rebounding, and he's capable of giving you some pretty decent defense at times. 2 steals last night, 2 steals and 1 block the game before that. He's had 5, 6, 7 steals over the last 3 games since coming back from injury. I mean, he's rock solid, and like I said, against Denver, they haven't had a solution for him, and Denver is going up with the same defense with Mr. Murray pretty much probably going to be on him. 70, 68, and 66, the 3 games out of 4 last year. The year previous to that, 84, 69, pretty much a 70 spot there, and a 72. That pretty much breaks down to about 66.6 fantasy points per game over those 7 or 8 games. He should get 60 or better, no doubt about it. It's one of the first times this year that I'm hands-on. I really feel even though they're going up against Denver. Now, Denver here, 15th against defending point guards this year. They are 6th in fantasy points allowed per game to point guards this year. But, again, over the course of the last 6 games, and I like to look at this really closely, but in the last 6 games, they have definitely given up their share of fantasy points to point guards. 35.9, pretty much round that off to 36 fantasy points per game allowed. And they were all defended by Jamal Murray, 41 and 37 respectively to Eric Bledsoe, 44 to Mr. Holiday, 36 to Chris Paul, 39 to Mr. Russell, and 54 to Kyrie Irving. Those are the guys they have faced over the last 6 or 7 games. They are going to have their hands full again with Russell Westbrook. If they had their hands full with these guys, they're going to have their hands full even more so tonight. So Russell Westbrook is my stud point guard for me today. Now, granted, I'm going to let you guys know nothing is ever guaranteed. He may have one of those off games. He may have a game where they defend him very, very well. Nonetheless, I still like Russell Westbrook at that price. But if you wanted to pay down, there is a lot of quality guards today going up against very, very favorable matchups against other opponents. Kyrie Irving going up against Dallas. Dallas is giving up the most fantasy points per game to point guards this year. At 9,400, you pretty much need about 46, 47. Very much attainable for Kyrie Irving. He's put up 50 spots in about 3 games over the last 4 or 5 games. Chris Paul going up against Cleveland. Cleveland is right down there in the bottom, also fantasy points per game given up. So that's an opportunity there. Golden State, De'Aaron Fox is in another matchup as well where he can be able to do very well there as well. And the next guy I'm going to talk about is Derrick Rose, man. Going up against his former team, you know, where he started his career at. Derrick Rose, I kind of like him here, 6,500. You could consider it the revenge game, whatever the case may be, and not so much so that. It's just the simple fact that Chicago has had their issues with point guards as well. So I think he matches up perfectly against them. 6,500. He's averaging pretty much 19.5 points per game, 4 rebounds, nearly 5 assists, averaging 31 fantasy points per game. He has been fantastic, and he's been, thank goodness, healthy, because I really feel bad for this kid. As explosive as he was, he is definitely starting to look a little bit like the old Derrick Rose, playing massive minutes, playing 30 minutes or better pretty much on average. And he's actually playing very, very well, shooting the 3 well, shooting from perimeter well, attacking the basket well. His free throw shooting has been good. So he has definitely come along. Let's go over to the cruncher and Mr. Derrick Rose. Obviously, you can make a case for Mr. Jeff Teague in the same matchup, so either or, I think you should be okay. But I like to go with Mr. Rose. 29, 29, and 30. He's pretty much averaging 20. I would say about, what is his minutes? He's averaging about 29, 30 a game over the last 3 games, but pretty much around 30, 31 for the season. The shots are there, 11 to 12, maybe as many as 13 shots per game, and then he takes his occasional 2 to 3. I would say about 3 to 4 threes per game, so he's pretty consistent with that. As you can see, his free throws, he gets to the foul line, he's been getting there as well as being aggressive, attacking the boards, and he's getting a couple of rebounds, a couple of assists. He fills up the stat sheet. He's doing a little bit of everything, which is something we would like to see. And of course, he has the occasional steals here and there. He's not big on those, but he's able to get those as well. So Derrick Rose, very, very sound, pretty good here. I like the factors that he's going up against Chicago, and we also know that he has 40, 50-point upside. There's no doubt about it. He has upside coming into this matchup at 6,500. He's 6,500 here, and he's also 6,500, folks, on DK. Apologize, I didn't tell you that right off the bat. But Chicago, 19th in defending point guards, 25th in fantasy points per game allowed to point guards this year in the NBA, allowing 36.3 fantasy points per game over the last 6 games, which is an increase of about almost 3 or 4 more fantasy points per game from the beginning parts of the year. They've given up 50 in these 6 games. They've given up 50 to Holiday, 47 to Bledsoe, 35 to Kyle Lowry, 35 to Chris Paul, 33 to the Knicks' Alonzo Trier, and 40 to Kyrie Irving. So they pretty much have faced a lot of the very top point guards in this league, and they're going to face another guy that's pretty explosive here today as well. And as well, if you don't want to play Derrick Rose, I am not at all opposed to not taking Jeff Teague in the same position that he's in. He's going to get about the same equal amount of minutes. But Derrick Rose is my favorite play there. We're going to go over the shooting guard. In that shooting guard today, man, I am loving my boy, Mr. Jrue Holiday. Going up against Washington, love picking on the Washington Wizards. They have been pretty bad in pretty much almost every position against opposing teams. So Mr. Jrue Holiday is my next guy here. 8,700. He's averaging 20 points, 4.5 rebounds, pretty much 9 assists a game, 42.7. Let's round that off to 43 fantasy points per game. And he's at 8,700. You need about 45. Pretty much 44, to meet value about 44, 43. And on DK, he's 8,600. You need about the same. About 43 fantasy points would do it. He is more than capable of getting that done. Let's go over to the cruncher and Mr. Holiday right here. And as you can see, his numbers have been fantastic. I mean, he's taking about 16, 17 shots a game. Look at the usage rate. His usage rate is really, really, really good. I would say about 24, 25% on average, and then he can get up as high as 29, 32% depending on the game flow of the matchup. 31 and 47, 37, and 41 over the last 2 games as far as minutes concerned. He is getting about 35, 36 minutes on average, pretty much, give or take. He's taken about 4 or 5 threes per game over the last 5 or 6 games, and he's capable of getting on the foul line. Not a bad free throw shooter there. He'll get his occasional rebounds. He definitely is willing to facilitate and get other players involved. He's been doing very well with his assist passes over the last few games, 8, 10, and 9 over the last 27. That's 27 assists over the last 3 games. Turnovers have always been a problem. He definitely gets about 5 or 6 a game. He's definitely got to clean that up. That will definitely save us even more fantasy. Will give us more fantasy points. But he makes up for it for a little bit of defense. He has the steals, 3 in the last game. He has had 5, 6, 7, 10, 11 steals over the last 5 games with about 4 or 5 blocks. So very, very active, and he has been so consistent. Look at these numbers, green, 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 all the way throughout almost the majority of the season. He's had only 1 letdown, 33 spot here over the last few games. I mean, he's been fantastic. Going up against Washington, they're 29th in defending shooting guards this year, 19th in fantasy points per game allowed. They're allowing 25 fantasy points per game over the course of the last 6 or 7 games, but over the last 4 games, they've given up 33.4 to C.J. McCollum, 35 and 32 respectively in 2 matchups against Evan Fournier and Josh Richardson put up 36. And these guys, Drew Holiday, with the amount of minutes he plays, the usage of him being like the second go-to guy on this team offensively, and of course playing the massive minutes and taking the amount of shots that he takes, you cannot pass him up here. Considering that they have faced guys like Fournier and Richardson, who have taken a lot of shots for their teams respectively as well. But I can see him definitely being able to put 40 or better here in this matchup, maybe even a 50 spot. So Drew Holiday, to me, is my favorite shooting guard today. As far as value, man, I really like, you could go down to the Sacramento guys, Hield or maybe Mr. Bogdanovich. I'm going to say Bogdanovich simply because of the $4,800 price tag. That's $1,200 cheaper than Buddy. And he is starting to get the minutes. So Bogdan Bogdanovich is my next guy here that I think could be a very, very nice pickup for us today. 29, 25, 22. The last 3 games, he's playing 25 minutes pretty much or better over the last 2 games. The minutes have been going up there slowly but surely. Started with 18, then 20, then 25, 24, and then back up to 20, 25, and 30. Usage rate has been really, really good, 22 to 23% pretty much, or 24% over the last few games. And look at the shots. This is what I like to see, that his usage rate is high, but he's also getting a lot of shots in that minimal amount of minutes of 25 to 30 minutes. So as long as he stays at 25 to 30 minutes, he is good for 1 fantasy point per minute. But at this price tag, again, $4,800 for him, you only need 24. And on DK, he's $4,000 on the nose. So you only need 20. Very much attainable for a guy like Bogdan Bogdanovich. So I really like it. And then he's taking, in the last 2 games, he's taking 9 threes per game, pretty much shooting almost 40% clip there. But nonetheless, I would say more about a 5 to 6 3-pointers per game. If he keeps that up and he starts burying those, we're just going to see more fantasy points. And we're going to see more usage and more time on the floor for him as well. Rebounds are there, assists are there. He does a little bit of everything. He's not the greatest defender, as you can see so far, only just 2 steals over the last 4 games. But we just need him to score. We need him to hit the threes, and we need him to also be able to do a little bit of rebounding and pass the ball a little bit. If he could do that, he's going to be just fine. He's going up against Golden State. They're 19th in defending shooting guards this year. They're actually doing fairly well. Clay has done a decent job against opposing shooting guards. They are 7th in fantasy points allowed to shooting guards, but allowing 25.5 fantasy points per game. But over the course of the last 3 games, they have given up some hefty numbers: 39 to DeMar DeRozan, 40 to Harden, which is pretty low for Harden, and 29 to Finney-Smith. So if Finney-Smith can get 29, I can see Bogdanovich getting 25 to 30. But basically here, we only need him to get 24, but 24 or better with the amount of minutes he's getting and the usage rate that he's getting as of late. I definitely like his chances for getting 30 or better today. So Bogdan Bogdanovich is my value guy of the day. There are some guys, obviously, I like as well as Bogdanovich, but we're going to just move on to small forward. Small forward, man, last night I gave you Paul George. I'm going to go back to Paul George again because at 8,900, even though he's on the front end of a back-to-back, and even though they're playing against Denver, who has kept teams, they're one of the better defensive teams this year. I just think that him, with the usage rate he gets, the amount of shots he takes, of him being the second go-to guy, the main other guy other than Russell Westbrook on this team, you just got to take a stab at him at 8,900. He's just still, his price is very good. That price is below what he is actually averaging. 8,900 for Paul George. You need 44. Even if you wanted to get 45, that's still below his average of 46. And on DK, he's 8,300. You only need about 41 there to meet value. Let's go over to the Fantasy Cruncher. And Paul George, just wonderful. 42 or better over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 straight games at 42 or more fantasy points per game. And the guy is averaging 47. And his price tag is below his average, which is incredible. You can't pass up that price tag knowing that you got guys like Giannis, who is almost $3,000 more, about $2,500 more. Now, Giannis is in a good spot as well, but I am not willing to pay $12,300 for Giannis when I could probably get Paul George to get me almost 50 or better at 8,900. So the minutes are there. We know that. The usage rate is there. Usage rate is pretty much 28, 29, maybe even 30% on average. And look at the shots, massive shots, even with Paul George, with Russell Westbrook back. He is still taking 21, 23, and 24 over the last 3 games, which I look at firsthand because those are the games that Mr. Westbrook has been back. And he is still getting his shots. Just needs to bury them. Like I said last night for yesterday's video, he just needs to bury these at a more consistent rate, 40 to 45%, and he'll definitely put up even more massive fantasy points. But 21, 23, 24 shots he's taking, you know, literally about 21, 22 shots per game over the last 5, 6 games. And look at the threes, taking anywhere between 11 to 12 threes per game over the course of the last 5 or 6 games as well. He brings some rebounding, he brings some assists, and he brings the defense. There's no doubt about it. His defense is better than Russell Westbrook's. 2 steals, 1 block last night. 2 steals. He's had 4 steals over the last 2 games and 1 block. I just think the price tag is he's cheap, man. He's still a little bit below his price tag. You got to take advantage. This is a guy that's definitely a 10,500 value guy. So you got to take advantage of that price tag versus Denver. Granted, they put this price tag down because he's facing Denver. I am not afraid of the situation with Denver. I'm willing to take a stab at it, and I want to let you guys know you don't have to take Paul George. We already have discussed that. My recommendation is Paul George is a nice play at 8,900 just strictly due to the fact of price and also because he has done fairly well. I mean, let's go. He has done fairly well against this team, I believe, as well. He put up a 61 spot against them last year and a 48 spot the year before. Granted, in 4 games last year, that was his best game. So he's more than likely going to get some Gary Harris defense, who he's not a bad defender. But I am still willing to take a chance at it because I also looked here. Denver is 8th in defending small forwards, 5th in fantasy points allowed to small forwards, but allowing 23 fantasy points per game. But they haven't really faced. I looked at all the guys they have faced. Osman, Engels, 22. Tatum, 30. Kyle Anderson, 22. Joe Harris, 15. Middleton faced them twice. Probably the best guy they have faced thus far this year. Middleton put up 34 in one game and 27 in another. James Ennis put up 30 against them. Bazemore, 15. And Wesley Johnson, 16. Those are the people they have faced. They have not faced somebody who's getting the amount of usage and minutes and the shots that Paul George is getting. So sometimes you got to look at these numbers and you got to say, hey, you know what? Denver's been doing very well, but whom have they faced as far as position players? So Paul George is going in there. This is going to be their toughest matchup this year. If they shut down Paul George, then Denver's defense, to me, if they can shut down Westbrook and Paul George down and keep them under 50 points each today, I will have a lot more respect for Denver, even though I do like Denver as a team. I just got a feeling that this is going to be a tough matchup for them to deal with both of these guys. So if Westbrook is not the one that goes off, it's going to be Paul George, and I would not be surprised if they both do very well. So Paul George, for that price tag, I'm going to have some exposure to him for sure. I will have some exposure to Kevin Durant more so than Giannis due to the fact that he's about $1,600, $1,700 cheaper and can get me 50 or better. So I'm willing to go with that. So Durant, I'm letting you know right now, is in play, but I'd rather come down and pay almost $1,900 cheaper. And as you can see, George is averaging 46, Durant 48. I mean, that alone is enough to at least get you to at least look to see why Paul George is 8,900. And it's just due to the fact that he's playing Denver today. But he's also playing at home as well, and his home and away splits are very good. He is pretty good at home as well. So Paul George in play. I will have some exposure to Mr. Marichik as well against Washington, because right now Washington, I just don't want to play anybody in Washington anymore. They're so just terrible right now as a team, and I like the factors of just going and stomping on them. So Marichik is definitely in play, but I'm going to come down to Robert Covington. I think he's in a good matchup against against Chicago, and he has getting tons of minutes, and the minutes, as far as usage and as far as time on the floor, all those kind of things definitely always intrigue me. And Chicago's had the issues with small forwards, as you can see, 27th in defending against them. But let's look at Robert Covington a little bit further. The minutes are there, 37 to as much as 38 over the last 3 games. Granted, this game here did not shoot well at all. It was one of the poorest games. That's actually the poorest game that he has had since becoming a Timberwolf. But look at it's still nonetheless, the minutes are there. Only been averaging 65 to 6,600. It's the first time he's up to 6,800 in a while. But as far as usage rate being about 14, 15%, for the amount of usage he gets, which is very little, he still takes anywhere between 8 to 10, 11 shots a game. And look at the amount of threes he gets. He gets a lot of shots from three, and pretty much in 3 of the games, he averaged 50% pretty much or better. So Covington, man, I think is going to be like I said, when they made this trade, I really believe that Covington was going to a place that could really help this team, and they're realizing it. Coach Thibodeau knows, and this is the reason why this guy's getting these amount of minutes. But anytime I can see this amount of minutes, I would love to see the usage rate a little bit higher. But I like the fact that he's getting at least 6 to 7 threes opportunities per game, and he's getting at least close to 9 to 10 shots a game. I definitely will like that. And he brings the defense. Look at the 5 steals in the last game, 2, 4 in the last. Since he's been with this team, he has had 7, 10, 16, about 16, 17 steals. So, I mean, Covington, I just like the matchup. He's in a good matchup here, man. Covington at 6,800, only 34. On DK, he's a fabulous deal. Ladies and gentlemen, you must lock him in on DK. He will be on my DK lineup. 5,700. You only need 27. The guy's averaging 29. So you got to take him there. I will play him on Fanduel as well. He is a little more pricier on Fanduel, but I am willing to pay the 6,800 in this matchup. Going up against Chicago, 27th in defending small forwards, 26th in fantasy points allowed to small forwards this year, allowing 30.3 fantasy points per game over the last 6 games. And then during the course of those games, they have faced the two guys that have put up the biggest numbers are Middleton, 51, and Van Fleet of Toronto with 34. So I think Covington definitely could get in there and get 30 to 35. He is got 40, 50 point. He's got 40-point upside for sure, Robert Covington. So I like him here at 6,800, and he will be my value play. There's a couple of guys I like other than him, but again, we'll go over that a little later on. Today, I'll be a little bit more involved with the chat. Been busy with the holiday, with Thanksgiving. I was out at a family event again last night, so I was not even available to even get on the chat. I did play, and I did okay. I actually posted that up on Instagram. I actually won the 100-player $1 event. I came in first. I got $25, so I put in $1, got 25, and then I also played the 2,500K first place late night after hours event, and I got as close as 29th or something like that, I believe, but I finished 93rd, and I walked away with some money there as well. That would have been nice to win that one with 2,500. I only made 3 actual lines for that one, 3 lineups, and one of them did well. But I posted that up on Instagram, so if you follow me there, you'll be able to see those results every day. That I wasn't even 300 score. It was like a 286 score, and it was enough to take and to do that well. I think the top score was 304 or something like that. It took first place. So very low scoring night last night. You could have definitely won it with only 304 points. All right, let's get back to it. So power forward, Anthony Davis, great spot against Washington. I mean, I don't know who's going to stop him in Washington, but, you know, the price tag is a little hefty. And when I look at some of these prices down here, I'd rather pay down a little bit at power forward. I do like Paul Millsap here and in that matchup against OKC. He has looked pretty good as of late. I would love to see the minutes a little bit more, but he's been very efficient. 23, 14, 7, 23 minutes last night. Again, these guys, a lot of teams are in a front end of a back-to-back. 14 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, 1 steal. 32 fantasy points last night. He's averaging 13 points, pretty much 7 rebounds, and about 2 assists a game, averaging about 30 fantasy points at 6,300. You need pretty much 30, 31 from him to meet value, and on DK, 6,100, so you pretty much need 30. I think he can definitely get you 30 here today. Let's go over to power forward and Mr. Millsap. And the minutes are there. 24 or better. I like more the 28, 29 in the previous 2 games before the last game. But he is doing quite all right as far as, let me just get him a little lined up here. All right, so pretty much he's averaging about 21% usage rate, pretty much more or less. He's taking about 10 field goals a game, and the minutes are there, about 26, 27 on average. We'll love to see that more closer to 30. But I think he's in a good matchup here. Now, granted, the usage rate a little choppy here and there, but in the last 2 games, 21% or better to 24%. I like the shots he's been taking. I like the fact that he's playing some defense and getting some blocks and steals, and that is always intriguing for me when I see players doing that. It's the first time this year that he's really been a little more active there, but he's getting the rebounds. He's not a big assist guy, but if he gives 2 or 3 or 4 a game, I would definitely be willing to accept that. And he has done okay, pretty okay against OKC. 48, pretty much a 49 spot and a 53 spot just last year alone. Granted, this was an overtime game. He played a lot of minutes back then. Obviously, it's a little different, the team, slightly with the way they've been using him. He's not playing 39, 40 minutes. As you can see in 2016-17, he played also massive minutes and was a big part of the offense here, 44 and 40. That is not usually the case. That's not much the case now, but nonetheless, I still believe at his price tag, he can definitely get us 35, 40. In a matchup like this. They're going up against OKC. They're 12th in defending power forwards. They've done well against power forwards this year. 9th in fantasy points allowed, which is very, very good, allowing 29.7 fantasy points per game. But they have had, in the last couple of games, they gave T.J. Warren 36 and 34 respectively, and Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks, the rookie, put up a 40 spot. So I feel pretty good knowing that Mr. Millsap has the potential and the skill set necessary to be able to get us 35, 40 here. And I think he is a fine play at his price tag today going up against OKC. Another guy that I like is Mr. Taj Gibson. You can either go with Taj Gibson at his price tag or you can pay up a little bit higher and take Dario Saric. I like the Minnesota matchup against Chicago in the front court. Chicago is a little vulnerable back out there in the front. Mr. Wendell Carter is not a good defender. He's also been playing not only 4, he's been playing sometimes the 5 for the Bulls. But Mr. Taj Gibson, let me go right to the cruncher. And I like the fact is they're playing somebody that is dead last defending against power forwards. But Mr. Gibson obviously has lost a few minutes, but not everything entirely yet to Dario Saric, which I told you guys that as long as Dario is shooting well, he will, and he eventually will also be priced higher than him, and he has actually done that already. But 26 minutes, 19 and 19. Again, his usage rate was pretty good here. He's a little choppy. Sometimes he's up to a 16, 17%. Then, of course, there was 2 games here, you know, kind of like blowout situations. He basically played a little bit more. So that's my only concern with that. When I see that, it's obvious here with the scores. You can tell that he played less minutes because of the blowouts. But he is capable of getting you 25 to 26 minutes. If he can get 25, 26 minutes, he is good for 1 fantasy point per minute at 4,300. You only need him to put up 21. And on DK, he is 4,200. You need 21 pretty much for any one of the 2 platforms. And I think he could definitely get us there. He could definitely get us there because he brings to the table the rebounding. He's capable of getting some blocks and steals. And he doesn't get a whole ton of shots, but he's capable of getting to the free throw line. And what I like most is just the rebounding and the factors that he can bring a little bit of steals and a little bit of blocks here and there. But in the matchup against Chicago, you don't need a whole lot to make 20, 21 fantasy points. And I think he could definitely get us 25 or better. He has 40-point upside, as you can see. He's done it already twice this year. So we know that he's capable of doing that, but he needs to play 26 or better. If he gets 26 minutes again or as high as in the 30s, this is prior to Dario. Obviously, he was getting a lot of usage then. His usage rate and his minutes are down now due to the fact that they got Dario. So, again, you could play Gibson or you can go and play Dario Saric. I think either or will be fine. Dario is a little bit more expensive, $5,100 on Fanduel, $4,600 on DK. But Chicago, 30th in defending power forwards, 27th in fantasy points allowed to power forwards. So they give up a ton of fantasy points. They're allowing 34.5 fantasy points per game. They did give up 34 to Mr. Siakam, 50 to Giannis, 30 to Mr. Hayward, and 35 to Larry Nance are some of the guys they've given up the most to over the course of the last 5 to 6 games. So Mr. Gibson, I think, is a fine play here as a value play at power forward. Again, there are some other guys that I am considering in my player pool. We're going to go over to center. And center is pretty interesting because there's a couple of guys in good matchups as well. They got guys like Mr. Towns going up against Chicago. Should do fairly well there. But when you see Jokic's price, 1,200, actually 1,200 less, you're definitely going to get intrigued there. He's averaging more than what Mr. Towns has been averaging. On top of that, with the same amount of games played, then you got Clint Capella, who's capable of getting you 40 or better. Is averaging pretty much 40 in 17 games, though less games, but he's 8,600. So right away, it leads me, hey, you know what? I will have some exposure to Jokic over Towns simply because of the $1,200 reduction, which I know he's capable of putting up the same amount of numbers as Towns. We know he has 60-point upside. So does Karl Anthony Towns. Capella could get us 50 as well, and at 8,600, he is $700, pretty much cheaper than Jokic. So I mean, you know, I would definitely accept that. $700 or $800 cheaper or $600 cheaper. I'll take that with a favorable matchup against Cleveland. So I'm going to go with Clint Capella here, and I love his price on DK. He's only $7,500 on DK. So Clint Capella, averaging 17 points, 12 rebounds, about 2 assists a game, 40 fantasy points, 8,600. You need about 43 on DK. He's 7,500. 7,500, you only need about 37 to meet value. And he just put up a 67 spot, 56 and 57, pretty much a 58 spot in his last 3 games. He is just truly on fire. His price tag hasn't ballooned a whole lot in those 3 games. As you can see, 8,400, 8,100, and all of a sudden 8,600 today. He's only gone up $200, and he's put up 50 spots and a 60 in 3 games. Minutes are there, massive, 35 or better. Look at the usage rate. His usage rate is over 20%. Over the last few games, he's at 21 and 22. Look at the shots. On the norm, he probably takes about 9 or 10 shots a game because he is a guy that gets a lot of easy buckets. But 21, 14, and 14 over the last 3 games. And granted, that was against Detroit, 2 games. Detroit is very, even though they have Drummond, they are very vulnerable at center because Andrew Drummond is not a good defender, and that's one of the reasons why he was able to still put up massive numbers, probably even better than Drummond put up. But today he's going up against Tristan Thompson. Even though Thompson has done fairly well, I think Clint Capella should be able to do very well against him. The rebounds are there. Incredible. 21, 15, and 16, and 10 over the last 4 games. And then he brings the blocking. He's so athletic, so long, his wingspan. He brings in the steals. He's doing very, very well. This guy has been solid. 23 floor points, 27 and 29 over the last 3 games, man. You know, so I like Capella here. Let's take a look to see how he's done against Cleveland. He did put up a 30 and 43 spot last year against them. Not much of a factor now. I mean, Cleveland is definitely a different team, and Clint Capella is right now in another universe the way he's been playing. Going up against Cleveland, 18th in defending centers, 22nd in the league as far as fantasy points per game allowed. They're allowing 32.8 fantasy points per game over the last 6 games. They gave up 55 to Drummond, 38 to Steven Adams, 35 to Mr. Vucevic, probably the most, well-named and top-tier centers in the league. Actually giving only Vucevic only 35 is pretty impressive for Cleveland. But Capella, I think he should be able to get more than 35. I think he's capable of getting us 40, maybe as much as 50. At that price tag, you'll need 40, you need 42, 43, and I think he can get you 50. I really believe he can get us 50 here today, especially if Cleveland can keep this game competitive. So Clint Capella, at that price tag, I will have some exposure, like I said, to Jokic, and I will have some exposure. My next guy I'm going to talk about is Julius Randle. I just think Julius Randle here didn't have a great game last night, front end of a back-to-back. But he's going to be great, man. I think he's going to be fine today. 17.5 points, pretty much 9 rebounds a game, nearly 3 assists, 33.5 fantasy points per game at 7,300. You need 36, and on DK, he's the same price, so you need 36 across the board between the 2 platforms. Not a problem for Mr. Julius Randle. Going up against Washington, I love picking on Washington. I really do. I want Washington to really, as much as I've chosen a few of their players this year and they let me down, I really don't want no part of Washington right now. I want them to get pounded, and hopefully they'll make a decision and get that team cleaned up by either trading Wall or trading Beal or someone. I think they need to trade one of the 2, that's for sure, in my opinion. All right, so Julius Randle, the minutes are there. He's pretty much at about 26, maybe 25, 26 minutes on average per game. the usage rate is above 20%. We know he's going to get usage, especially when Mr. Davis is on the bench or Mr. Marichik. He definitely takes over. 23, 25, 23, 26. He's 26 usage rate, pretty much about 25, 26% on average. And look at the shots. Anywhere, last 4 games, he's taking 13 or better. And his conversion has been pretty good last game. Obviously, last night didn't shoot that well from the floor. But nonetheless, he gets you the rebounds. He's able to get a couple of assists. Right here, he went really crazy, was able to get involved a lot here, passed the ball quite a bit. That's good. But he brings the defense, and he brings the physicality that you need, you know, going up against Washington, which more than likely is going to have maybe Markieff Morris or something up front, you know. I mean, I just love the whole matchup here. So Julius Randle, man. Versus Washington, they're 5th in defending centers, 23rd in fantasy points allowed to centers. They're allowing in the last 6 games a whopping, the worst in the last 6 games against centers, a whopping 41 fantasy points per game. They're giving up 43 to Nurkic, 40 to Jared Allen, 36 and 49 respectively in 2 games against Vucevic, and 50 to Mr. Whiteside, and 28 to Tristan Thompson. So if Tristan Thompson can get 28, Julius Randle should be able to get 30 to 35 or better. And like I said, we need him to get 36 or more. I think he's definitely in a favorable spot. And again, there was Anthony Davis got a little injured last night, was a little bummed up, you know, a little bruised up. He may wake up today not feeling that great, and you never know with Anthony Davis. He may decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a game-time decision. He might not play, and that's going to definitely bump up Mr. Julius Randle to go even more nuts. So I will love him even more so, and I'll have even more exposure to him than Capella if Anthony Davis is out. So definitely keep your eye on that. I think right now, as of me doing this video, I haven't heard anything or anything is posted up here as far as Anthony Davis is concerned. No, there's nothing here as of the video right now, but anything can change throughout the day. So again, keep your eye on that because I did watch the Knicks game last night, and I know he was out for a little bit and came back. I'm sure he's a little banged up. He may take the day off on the front end of a back-to-back. And that's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. That is pretty much for today, the 7-game slate. Again, drop a like on the video. Again, there will be a link in the description down below for those who want to join the Slack group. It's totally free. The link is an invite. You just click on it. You get in there. You sign up. And you're in. That's it, plain and simple. A lot of guys get in there. They definitely interact throughout the night. I haven't been able to be that active over the holiday. I expect to be more involved there today. Who knows? I may even go live today. I will have some time, so there might be a possibility I may do that. I'll think about that as the day progresses and see if I will have some time. But I think I might be able to go live. If I do, I'll definitely notify it by doing Twitter or something and just basically let you guys know, or even in the comment section of this video, I might just say, hey, I might go live. Again, not for certain, but that's a possibility. Other than that, man, just, you know, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Obviously, I appreciate that. Make sure you click on that bell icon. Make sure you turn that on. NFL video will be out later on today for tomorrow's NFL Week 12. And that's basically it, man. Again, good luck tonight, and I'll see you guys on the next NBA video.